Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a Tuesday night principled chiropractic broadcast brought to you by Dynamic Essentials and Band of Brothers all over the world. My name is Dawn Maynard. I am from Charleston, South Carolina, and wishing you guys a wonderful Tuesday night and happy Halloween coming up. Hope you got something fun to do in your office tomorrow. We're having a Halloween t-shirt contest at my office. But first of all, we want to, on behalf of DE, we want to give a very big thank you to everyone who came and participated, who came to the gala at DE this past weekend. Just commemorating those beautiful 60 years. All those lovely ladies taking pictures on the top of BJ's car. I've seen all that evidence. Everyone had such a wonderful time. Everybody looked so beautiful and wonderful. And we are just so grateful to have had such a memorable and wonderful way to mark the 60th anniversary of that gala and of Dynamic Essentials that we love so much. Our next big DE is in Clearwater, January 9th through 12th. Register at lifede.com. Make sure you get that in. All the hotel information will be there. And registering for the event as well. And I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic party and way to celebrate on that Saturday too. So this is a great way to stay in touch between now and the next DE. And so hopefully we'll all spend some time here together every Tuesday night. It's the end of the year. I know I've been getting lots of text messages about what our big end of the year goals and focus is. And I know I got a lot of big changes coming up in my office too. I can't wait to share once we get everything together. But I hope everybody finishes up well, finish strong, stay connected. And let's just serve these people and serve this profession and just love up on each other and all that kind of good stuff. Stay connected here on Tuesday nights and in your little groups and the colors and all of that kind of thing too. So hopefully everybody had a wonderful DE and is ready to finish this year with a bang. All right. So speaking of bang, we got a big personality tonight. I'm really looking forward to this talk. I believe it is his first Tuesday night talk. So drum roll for that. But out of Kings Park, New York, we got Mike Sredniawski. Take it away, Mike.
Oh, man. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you so much. Good evening, my DE brothers and sisters. Hello, everybody. Gosh, I just got to say, it's really an honor to be here because this is a special thing to be able to address all of you guys. Is something I never thought of that I'd ever be asked to do something like this. So thank you, DE panel, for asking me. I appreciate it. I know that that just means that you value something I have to say, and I never thought I'd be in this position. So thanks. And I figured, you know what, to make it kind of like, to give you a framework of, I don't know where to look. Should I look here? Should I look? Okay, I'll look in the camera there because I don't like looking at myself. I'm going to look at the camera. All right. To give you like a framework of how I'm thinking about like what to say, I figured, you know, tonight we got a really awesome testimonial from a patient. And he was just telling me about something, his experience with chiropractic. And I said, bro, if you wouldn't mind doing a Google review for us, because I think that there are so many people that would love to hear what you have to say about your experience with chiropractic. And then I was telling my CA, Lisa, that about him and what I said to him. And then I was like, oh my gosh, like that's exactly what I'm going to do here, is give you a testimonial about my experience. And this is the best way I feel like I can help anybody else who's out there, who's ever been in my situation. So I figured I'd start and share a little bit of history about what I've been through, about what's happening. I know Brian painted a pretty grim picture the other day. Listen, I'm very grateful and very fortunate to be where I'm at right now, but things have been a little tough. You know, they've been tough. And some of the people who know me personally I know some of those things, but just to give you a background, and then I want to give you the takeaway. Actually, what I've gathered from my experience so far. And I did take a few notes. I have them posted over here just so I can stay on track, because otherwise I'm going to go off the rails and we'll be here for 3 hours, and we don't want to do that. But it all started back in 1971 when I was a little wee lad and I was just born. Just kidding. Let's fast forward to back when I went to my first DE. I started chiropractic school at Life University in 1991. I was still 19 years old. And it was, I guess, 1992 that my chiropractor from Long Island was coming to DE. I never even heard of it. And he goes, "You got to come to DE." So I went down to DE at the Stouffer Waverly and I got exposed to it. And there were like 2,000 people there, and it was freaking amazing. And then I went to DE almost every single time I could as a student. And then I even continued to go even up to like 2001. But then I just stopped. And I got a great picture of Dr. Sid on my wall over there, and it's from 2001. It's me and him together, and he signed the picture. I saw him at a DE at the Waverly. And you know what? I think what happened was I stopped because I got lost. I got bitter. And there might be some of you out there, I hope there's not too many, but some of you who might be able to identify with me with this happening. But like I've always had the principle of chiropractic. I always grew up with not grew up with it, but I always got adjusted by, since I'm 7 years old, I got adjusted by a principled chiropractor in New Jersey. Side note, when I got to Life University, I looked at, they were talking about clubs. You got to go to club. You got to do this club. I'm like, what the heck is a club? And I see all these posters, and I walked down the hallway and I saw that Thompson Zenith 440 table. I didn't know what it was at the time, but it looked so cool. And I'm like, man, I got to learn how to use that. And even my buddy John Pajero thought the same thing. And it just like drew me in. And then I realized, after becoming president of the club and learning the table and everything, I went home one time on a break to visit my very first chiropractor in New Jersey when I was a young boy. And he had the same table in his office. And it was just like supposed to be that way. It's kind of cool. But long story short, that's where I met Brian. That's where I met John. I met Season at college, at undergrad. So there's a lot of people in my life that I'm grateful to have in my life. But when I was going through my process at school, then I graduated in 1995. 4 years later, I got married. And then 4 years later, I had 4 kids. So I'm like, oh man, like, it was probably around the year of 2005 where I was majorly stressed out. And I'm running a practice. I was getting very conflicted between what I was hearing at DE and what I thought it meant. And I used to sit, in the back or in the middle somewhere, and I was just lost in the crowd, man. I was just a guy, just another face in the crowd. I thought that the people on the stage were very intimidating. I almost felt like I can't approach them, like they were unapproachable. And I know that may not be true, but this is how I felt. And this was my belief at the time. I never bothered to have a personal conversation with any of them, like Ian Grossum, Sigafus, Gary Walsman, who else? Dr. Sid, even himself. I didn't even talk to Mike O'Halloran when he started speaking. I was scared. And it was crazy because I could have learned so much, but I just kind of shied away from it. And I just didn't do anything. I didn't really interact. And I'm taking what everybody's saying so literally that I drove myself into a practice where at times I was seeing about maybe 80 people in a day, but I wasn't making any money. And I was struggling. And it wasn't that big of a practice because I only worked at that time like 3 days a week. So you can only imagine. And I just felt like I was getting conflicting information. So the struggle went on. I wasn't really able to pay bills. We have these 4 kids. My wife had to stop working. She's a teacher. So we cut a teacher salary out. It was just a lot of stress, and I didn't have any management skills. I didn't really know how to run a practice. I came out of Life College knowing how to adjust. And that was the thing I focused on, but I didn't know how to run a business, and I didn't know who to latch on to, who to connect with. I was afraid to talk to anybody who is a big wig in DE. Very intimidated. So I just stopped going. I was like, screw this. This isn't working for me. I'm just driving myself into a hole. I sold the practice in 2009, and I paid off some debt, and then I was just doing home improvement work. And then after I ran out of money, my wife, she went back to work when I sold the practice. We were just basically living on her salary. I got a corporate job, applied for that Obama home loan modification program. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Well, they screwed me with that one really bad, because I was in limbo waiting for this home loan modification because I couldn't afford to pay my mortgage. And her salary was good, but it wasn't that good because she just started teaching, and then she took 4 years off for the kids. So the home loan modification thing, I got into arrears with that. And I was basically looking at losing my house. And then I got a corporate job. I was doing I don't even want to tell you what I was doing, but I was working for my dad had a company that he's like, I'll get you in the corporate job and you can do some work here. And at that point, it was a 9 to 5er. It was cool, but it was boring and it wasn't chiropractic. I had a non-compete clause for 3 years for 15 miles because I sold my practice. And I'm skipping a lot of steps just to keep it concise here because I don't want to take too much time. But the point is I was basically about to lose my house, and I had some credit card debt. The bank sent me back whatever checks that I did send them. And I was like, man, I can't believe they actually sent a check back. Like, it's crazy. So anyway, started, this is actually the time in my life when I started to, because I was really bored at this job, and I had a computer station and I had my own little, thing. So I logged on and I got to the digital Bible and I started reading my Bible, and I never read it before. And I read it chronologically right through. And imagine how much time that would take. So, and they were paying me to do it. But they didn't know it. So anyway, I started reading that and I started getting into the word and I started praying. And then all of a sudden what happened was, I was able to make a deal with my credit card company. They wiped off a bunch of debt for a little payment. Then I got a call from the mortgage company and they said, hey, we've been tasked to correct some bad home loans. And I was one of the guys. So they renegotiated that. I got whole again with a home loan that was they took $110,000 off of my principal, and I had rolled my student loans into my home loan. So go figure that one out. So anyway, that is really a strong faith builder. If there is anything to be something to build your faith, that was it. So now I'm at this job. My home is getting better. Okay. Some debt's cleared. And then the non-compete clause was over. So I was there for about 3 years. And then I started getting some phone calls from people that really weren't happy with the guy I sold the practice to. And they're like, hey, can you come to the house? And I'm like, I guess so. You're not going to the guy. I didn't want to, what do you call that? Be in breach of a contract or anything. I really don't want to piss anybody off, but I'm like, yeah, if you're not going, you're not getting adjusted. And I'm like, I'll come to your house. So then I bring the table around, and it took me 5 hours to adjust like 6 people. And I'm like, man, this sucks. I'm driving around for 5 hours on a Friday night once a week, and I'm making like $100. I was charging them like $20 or something to come to their house. I didn't give a shit. I was just didn't give a crap. Sorry about that. Because I was working and making like 85 grand in this job. Woohoo! So I decided at that point that maybe I should just rent a room in Kings Park somewhere in my hometown. And there was one room for rent for $400 a month. And I was making about $100 a week. So I wasn't making any profit, but I was able to see and service these people once a week. Then they cut off they got cut off from a big contract, and they laid off half the company. I was one of the new guys. I was out. So now I lost an $85,000 salary. I'm making about $500-600 a month total at this point, and just open on Friday nights. It's crazy. So long story short, I had this little practice going, but I started to build it up. I started to work, 3 days a week now, 4 days a week. I did a fair, I did street fair, I did screenings, and I was like, oh man. And at one point I did work with Mike O'Halloran when I was in the non-compete clause. And I said to him, I just want to do screenings. I want to learn how to do screenings really good, because I never really learned how to do screenings good. So I did a lot of screenings and really knew how to work it. So I started doing that here for myself. And I started building up the volume. And then I got to a point, it was, I don't know, maybe around, I don't know, 2014 or so. And I was seeing like 150 a week, out of this practice, a little one room, and it expanded as we went. But I still really wasn't happy. And I thought, I want to be busier. I want to make more money. I still don't know how to manage a practice. I still came into this practice with the same poisoned headspace that I had before. And that's a problem because I never really learned how to get out of that. I just didn't have anything else I could do. So I have this degree in chiropractic. I can't do anything else. This is all I can do. I can't just be like a teacher or something because I don't have a degree in teaching. And besides, I wouldn't even know what to teach because I don't want to teach physics or biology. That sucks. So in 2014, I remember calling Lieberman. It was right around that time. And I'm like, yo, I'm thinking of coming down to Georgia. I heard he's doing really well. And I'm like, I think I'm coming down to Georgia, hoping he would give me like, hey, you want to come over and work for me? And this is what he says. I love Lieberman. He gives me the 1-2 punch. He punches me right in the face every single time. I said that to him, and he goes, well, you know what? I love you, Mike. You're a great guy, great adjuster. I'd love to have you here in the practice, but you know what? You got to fix your crap first because it's not where you go. Because you're just going to take your same crappy situation and bring it down here with you. And I don't want that in my practice. And I was like, whoa, dude. So he's like, yeah, fix your crap first. Be successful. Leave New York because you want to leave, not because you have to leave. And that really hit home. So go back to the practice, trying, struggling, home life, a lot of just resentment, pissed off, not connecting with other chiros, not part of the New York Chiropractic Council, not part of DE. I don't give a crap. Everybody's told me things. You should do this. You should do this. You should do this. And they were shooting all over me and nothing was working. And then I started getting into renting space out of my office. Maybe I'll pay for the rent. Massage therapy, trigger point therapist, 1,000 here, 1,000 there. And then I started getting into selling essential oils and, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then it was like, literally, there were two things that happened. One thing was somebody came into my office and they're like, oh, you're the essential oil guy. And I went, like, I want to be known as the chiropractor. I'm not the oil guy. And it really, really pissed me off. And I'm like, what have I stooped down to now? And then not too long after that, I get a very loving text from Andy Fraley. I hope you're listening tonight, Andy. He chews me out for selling essential oils. And I'm like, oh man. And he even did it on DE in 2016. He's on the stage making a comment about me. That was me. If you ever listen back to that's me he's talking about. But I really just hated being a chiropractor at this point. And I was like, man, I got to get out of this thing. It just sucks. I'm not producing. Very, very bitter. Then I got a call from a buddy, Chris Hansen. He's down in Babylon and in West Babylon. We know each other from some other training and from school. Wants me to, he said, maybe I'm looking for an associate. Maybe work for me. Okay. So I go meet with him. We have pizza that night. And I tell him a little bit about my story in my life. He goes, sorry, bro. Can't have you work for me. Not with that poison mindset. He goes, you're just not the right fit for my office. And I was like so embarrassed. And that was the beginning of something different. I was like, holy crap, what a wake up call. I'm getting smacked around and I'm told I'm worthless, basically. So I did cover his office, and because I followed him, I covered him. Something changed. I loved how he was practicing. It was exactly how I want to practice. He was busy, and he is a principled chiropractor. And it's exactly how I want to practice. I'm like, man, there's somebody actually here on Long Island that's doing what I want to do the way I thought I'd want to do it. And so things changed. He saw a change in my mindset. He did hire me, and I helped him out for a couple of days a week. Started training with another guy, Glowacki. Got some systems going in my office. I started feeling more confident, started feeling better. Started actually making some money, but it was quick money. I found that it was a great thing to do for a couple of years, but there were holes in the system for me, and it wasn't really who I am authentically and how I need to practice here authentically to be myself. So I can't do exactly what somebody else is doing or telling me to do. But I was very good at doing that system, and it got me out of a mess. Excuse me. And then COVID hit. Excuse me. I don't know if you can hear that. My compressor just went off, so just give it a second. Hold on. So anyway, 2020 COVID, lost a lot of volume because I didn't have a lot of volume to begin with. I got up to like a 200 a week volume, and then I was back down to like a 150, 160 a week volume. And that was because like a third of my practice left. Some Medicare patients, they left. And then I realized, you know what? I don't have any new patients coming in. And that's only how I was making money. Only. There was no repeat business. People had paid a big chunk of money and then they would disappear. That was it. My what do you call that? My retention wasn't good. So long story short, it comes to, it's fast. We're coming up to August of 2022. And that's when Brian said on the stage, I was down in Atlanta to bring my daughter home for school. Season goes, Mikey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm in Kennesaw. And he's like, what? I'm in Atlanta. And I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I got to visit you. I haven't seen Season, and like, he's my roommate in chiropractic school. And I haven't seen him in like 22 years, 21 years, whatever it is, 20 years. So I went there, saw him, saw Brian, got reconnected. Then the next month in September, I had a real wake-up call. This is interesting. Now I have this system where I'm like, you get prepaid, big chunk of money, okay, up front. I tweaked a couple of things, had 16 new patients on the books from Monday to Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday morning. I had 10 new patients and 10 ROFs in that period of time. They all said no. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. I was thinking I'm like 50% close rate. I'll make probably 10 grand. It's all about me. I'm so great. I'm going to close these people. This is all me, me, me. How much money can I charge? Nothing. I called Brian at lunchtime on a Wednesday. He sets me straight. I come back from lunch. I'm like, Lisa, we're changing everything. And she goes, what? And I go, this is what we're doing. And I literally changed my practice over lunch in like less than an hour. And you know what she says to me? This was the confirmation I knew I did the right thing. She goes, oh, thank God. And so I was like, all right, this is the right thing to do. So now we started, I came to DE, but it was still a struggle financially. Those guys are really good to me. I couldn't afford to get to DE in October and not even in January. And this is not too long ago. And they paid for me. They actually said, we got you. We need you here. And I'm like, oh, I feel bad. And nope. So Brian Moriarty, Brian Lieberman, they took care of me. They got me down there. And then literally it was like, oh, by the way, after lunch, we had the other 6 patients. They all said yes. So that was like ace in the hole that week. So I knew I was doing the right thing. It was at that point I set my goal for 500 a week, and that's what I want to hit until I hit it, and then I'll set it for something else. But from that point on, it's just been come to DE, steady growth. And now I'm thinking this is like different. This DE is different than what I used to go to because I really was resentful. I really didn't want to go back. And then I went back only because I know and I trust Brian. And then I got to meet some of the other guys, Dan too, Brian Moriarty, Steve, Peter. And as meeting these guys, I realized these guys are approachable and they do want to help, and they're not pompous asses. And I'm not saying that anybody was, but I thought they might have been, and that they are actually willing to help because they care and they don't make any money from this. And I'm like, how does this happen? So now, we're steadily growing. We're about 360 a week, give or take, how some weeks fluctuate. But the takeaway from this whole thing, and not to belabor too much of a point, because I know we're talking, but I don't want to, make sure I honor your night here so you don't stay on this thing forever. But here are some of the takeaways. The first thing is, like, I realize, and I think about this a lot when I go to DE. DE is not a thing. It's not like this thing you get. It's about relationships. it's all about the relationships and like DE. And there were some people that said it that day, this weekend. Some people said it, and I was always thinking it. I go, it's about it's about the people. Like we are DE. Like I was in the church, and then the pastor goes, "There's no church." He goes, "We are the church." Like we. So we just have it. We just congregate in a building, but it's all of us. Like so, it's the spirit of having these relationships that's so important, because there are so many successful chiropractors that I'm like in awe over, and I don't even know who they are. But then I hear one and I'm like, oh, this guy just graduated 2 years ago and he's like killing it. And I'm like, oh man, like, wow, I missed out on so much, but I'm so excited to get to know these people. And when you think about it, if it's a relationship thing, right? So I thought about this. Why do they have DE 4 times a year? Why? Why do we do these Tuesday night calls every week? Because you can't have a long distance relationship once a year. Imagine if you were dating somebody and you only got to see them once a year. What kind of relationship are you going to have at that point? So this is about meeting people, building relationships, kindling those relationships. I mean, man, my DE was over as soon as I got on Brian's boat, because I had everything I needed right there, even from listening to Rachel in the car on the way to the boat. Even before that, having the conversation with my friends John and Gabby in their kitchen before we even left New York. So like DE was already done. And now it was just a matter of floating and having fun and enjoying all the relationships. Like, I don't know. I enjoyed every moment of it. It's a support system that works best once you get to know people. I wrote some notes here. So don't just you can't just show up and listen in the back of the room. Like you can, and you'll get stuff out of it because everybody who speaks has something great to say. But to really feel the nuances, to really get to know these people who are talking and see how they tick and like just, I don't know, it's so important. And I noticed this, like successful principled chiropractors are never going to see other chiropractors as a threat. I think it's huge. Even in town, when you're in town, I have a brand new chiropractor who I've set up to purchase a practice next town over. And I'm so excited for this guy. And he was a mentor. I'm his mentor. He was in my office for his peak for Sherman, or the PMOE, they call it. And I can't wait for this guy to get into practice, because it's just more principled chiropractic. We never see each other as a threat. There's always enough people. And I've also learned so much from talking with Brian and from talking with so many people that you got to make it easy for people to come to you. It's got to be easy for people to come. It's got to be easy for people to pay. It can't be a struggle. It can't be complicated. We overcomplicate it and we make it difficult for people to just come and just get adjusted. Like, make it simple. If you're making it complicated, or if, that's it. Like literally I wrote here, the Medipractors aren't interested in helping their competitors. It's funny because anybody who's like a Medipractor, they're always going to be quiet and they're not going to tell you their secrets, but we understand the universal principles. As DE chiropractors, we get the universal principles. And I thought of this too. This is interesting. I wonder how many comments I'm going to get on this one. To give, to love, to do, to serve, and for the sake of serving without expecting anything in return, right? I think it should be unconditional giving, doing, loving, and serving, because we understand how the universe works. And honestly, I think we do expect return. But what I think is the return that we expect is that we expect the world to be a better place because of it, right? Because of giving, loving, and serving. We expect the world to be a better place. We want humanity to flourish because of it. And we want to leave a legacy of service to our families because of it. So I feel like those are the expectations that we want for life and for the life of others. So we are expecting something in return, but I get the whole idea of getting lost in service. The biggest thing was when Brian said to me, he said, I was at the dinner with him one night with my son. He said it in front of my son. And this guy doesn't hold anything back. Me and Brian and Rachel and my son were out there. He was so gracious. He opened his house to us. My son had a soccer tryout at the college nearby. And I go, hey Brian, hey, guess what? He goes, what are you doing to build your practice? I go, I'm going to speak to the Chamber of Commerce. I told him, went to their holiday party, and I told him, I can speak for you guys. And he says, have you been to a Chamber of Commerce meeting before? I go, no. And he goes, so you're just going to go up to them at this one meeting and say you're going to speak for them at their next meeting? And I go, yeah. And he goes, that's the most selfish thing I ever heard, man. You are selfish. And I was like, another Lieberman punch right between the eyes. And my son is sitting there and he goes, bro, he goes, man, you are doing that because you want to get new patients. He goes, why don't you just tell them you're there to help them? Why don't you tell them you'll do the crappiest job that nobody wants to do, that, you'll clean the street or whatever you got to do to help the chamber be a better chamber rather than making it about you. He goes, stop making it about you and get lost in the service. And I was like, holy crap, this guy, man. Whew. So he's right. And then like the week later, I was in a soup kitchen. Don't ask about that one. But that was good. I got patience out of that. Not because I was getting, but because I was giving. So to sum it up, if you have any problems in your life or in your practice, like Steve said, you got to get more new patients, right? You need to attract more new patients. New patients solves everything. How do you get them? You don't get them. You attract them. It's a whole thing. You can't have the mindset of get. You got to have the mindset of give, and give your best to attract a new patient because they need you more than you need them. Remember that one? That sounds familiar. You need DE relationships to learn how to attract new patients. It's not an overnight thing. You need to be coachable and you need to be humble enough to take the advice of the successful people you surround yourself with. Humility is a big thing. I used to always take myself way too seriously. And my son is even going through something at college right now, and he's very sensitive, and I'm sensitive. I've always been sensitive. Anybody says something, I'm like, I walk around and like I could talk to somebody, they turn around, they walk away. You know how we do this? We're walking all over the place. I'm sensitive. I'm like, oh, that person doesn't like me. It's like mental monkey chatter. My son's going through something with a friend group, and I'm like, Brian, you got to just don't take yourself too seriously, man. You got to just learn to laugh at yourself and just brush it off. People aren't as smart as you, Brian. I did want to say a special thank you, though, to not only Season, John and Gabby, Brian Moriarty, Brian Lieberman, Chris Walker, and Dan, too. I just want to acknowledge those guys because without you guys, this really wouldn't be something that I wouldn't have even been invited on here, I don't think, because I love you guys. So it's really, the last thing I have to say is this before we can cut this off. It's just so important to be rooted and grounded in the philosophy so you can communicate properly and empower people and your patients to make better health choices. And I thought about this. I was just going through this with my CA. I'm like, you know what? There are these mixers out there. Yeah, they make a lot of money. Some of them make more money than I do. Why am I stuck on this thing? Why am I a principled chiropractor? Why do I only adjust people? Why don't I have therapies in my office? Why not? And it's kind of like, I know why I don't, but I always check myself and ask myself, why are you doing this? It's because if I didn't have that principle, then the little baby who I adjusted last week, he came in with little Luca came in with colic. He's 6 weeks old. Because of the principle, the mom knows to bring the baby in, and that can change his entire life. If I'm a medipractor, I'm not adjusting babies. I'm not changing people's lives. There was a woman just tonight, and she's a great patient. She just doesn't really get it because I expect everybody to get it like that. Like all of my years of chiropractic practice, all of my schooling, I expect patients to get it in their first visit, obviously, like everybody does. But she comes in, she says, I didn't want to come in because I was really sick. And I was sick. And then my kid got sick. And I didn't want to get anybody else sick. And I'm like, oh my God. So I just said, what about basic, what's the first thing everybody's thinking right now? Immune system. So I go, when you get adjusted, actually, it can help enhance your immune system. and that can help you get over whatever you got faster, maybe even prevent it. And she goes, I don't know if I believe it. So, very lovingly and non confrontational, I started to educate her a little bit. I have my charts here. And then I told her a story. And I showed her the chart. She still doesn't understand it because she can't make the connect between the immune system and the nervous system. How funny is that? So, you got to treat these people with kid gloves. But I just said to her, I'm like, it's funny. I was just at this conference and there was a doc on the stage who said he had a confrontation where he was educating a medical doctor, a cardiologist, about the connection between the brain and the heart. And I said, and this guy is a renowned cardiologist and doesn't believe there's a neurological connection to the heart. So I said to her, and she's like, what? Are you crazy? She goes, I mean, you can literally feel it. You could feel your heart. And she goes, of course there's a connection. I'm like, so you get it. I said, but you know what, though? He wasn't about to try to convince this guy of something that's true. That's just, you can only say what you're going to say. I said, but I want to let you know that this is reality. This is why I became a chiropractor, because I was sick and I got adjusted as a 7-year-old kid. And I got better without drugs and without surgery, without medication, without pills, potions, and lotions. So she goes, okay, I kind of see it. And I said, Michelle, if I can tell you this and I can help you with this is what you need in your toolbox as a mom to take back to your family. And if I can empower you with something different than the regular medical stuff that's out there and give you an idea or some hope or just a thought that this might be an avenue that you can pursue with your child. God forbid your child gets into a mess, a real bad mess. At least you know that chiropractic is an option for your kid, for him. And I said, and that's my job, is just to let you know this. And if I, just between me and you guys, if I didn't practice the principle of chiropractic, I wouldn't hammer that thing down so hard. And I wouldn't hammer it down hard because I wouldn't care. And if I didn't care, people would be a number. And if they were a number, I might have more money. But man, I love being a chiropractor right now. I am so far from being resentful. I know that this is my position where God has placed me in this office. I have this whole new outlook because everything's changed because of the people I surround myself with now. There was a point where I said, I never want to adjust anybody again. And now I feel like I want to adjust everybody I can, anywhere I can. And it's so different. And I don't know what the change was except for just being loved, being loved and being told. Shit, one of the best things that I've heard that I couldn't believe back in August of 2022 was when Lieberman's like, Shredder, you were like my mentor. Like, you taught me how to adjust. And I'm like, what? That was the first time I ever heard that. I actually never heard that from him. Not that I can remember. And I was so taken back. And I'm like, dude, like, you're killing it. You're my mentor. Like, I want you to be my mentor. You have to tell me how to do this thing. So it was such a weird, like, my mind, my brain cells are like, just like electricity. And I was like, anyway, so that's the point that I wanted to make. I wanted to share that with you just to say that, like, yes, there's hope. Anybody who's struggling, you just got to show up. You got to show up. You have to engage. You got to engage. You got to ask people questions. You got to go to dinner. You got to go to lunch. You got to go to breakfast. You got to talk. You got to meet. You got to hang out at the bar. You got to do whatever you do at DE. But continue those relationships when you're not at DE. Call somebody up. Throw a text. I think I texted Lieberman today asking him what his cologne is, how to put cologne on, because the fact that the guy is successful. Every time I hug him, Lieberman, I'm like smelling this guy. I'm like, geez, Christmas. Am I not putting it on right? I was putting it on under my shirt and I'm like, do I have to put on the clothes? Like, so this is how I'm thinking. Like, I bought blue Cole Haan shoes today because my buddy Chris Hansen, he's not even at DE, but guess what? He's still a guy I admire and he's, to me, still a mentor. He wears blue Cole Haan shoes. I got my pair of blue Cole Haan shoes today. And I'm not superstitious. I just, success leaves clues, like Mike said, and I want to follow what successful people do. When we were online at the luncheon Dr. Borla spoke at, I'm across from Brian Moriarty, and I'm watching what he's putting in his plate. I'm just scooping the same exact thing on my plate. I said, Brian, I'm scooping what you're scooping because I'm eating what 1,000 a week guys eat. Right, here you go. So anyway, that's how I think now. And that's all I have to say about that. for tonight. So thank you so much for having me on. If anybody wants to contact me, you can call me, you can text me. I know I spoke a little bit long. Sorry for that, but we can wrap it up. So thank you guys. Have a great night.
Well, we expected passion and enthusiasm. That's exactly what we got. It's like two different people talking on that call tonight. So glad to see you thriving, man. It's great. All right, everybody. Have a great night. Have a great week. We will see you next Tuesday. And happy Halloween and have a great night. Love you, everybody.